Welcome to a very special live episode of Rare Connection. This is our 75th episode, and I wanted to say thank you for all who have watched, written me fan mail, and supported the show. I will be reading some of the excerpts from fan mail throughout the episode. Please do not be offended if your email did not make the cut. What does it really take to maintain independence when your body is changing? For many people living with rare diseases, that question becomes part of everyday life. Navigating changes in mobility, access to care, and the tools needed to stay independent. My guest today is Alexis. After noticing changes in her mobility, after noticing changes in her balance and coordination, Alexis began a journey through multiple doctors and specialists before genetic testing led to a diagnosis of Friedreich's Ataxia, a rare progressive neurological condition that affects the movement, coordination, and independence. But Alexis didn't stop there. Didn't stop at diagnosis. She turned her experience into purpose and founded Rise Up, helping people access mobility devices that can make a real difference in daily life. Today we'll talk about what it's really like to live with Friedreich's Ataxia, the changes in mobility and access to care, including the reality that many patients have to travel long distances to find the right specialists, and how new treatment options like Scarclaris are beginning to change the outlook for this community. Before we begin, a couple rules for the chat. Please keep comments respectful and keep politics out of the chat. I will stop occasionally in between questions to address the audience. Please be patient. I may not get to your comment right away. And since we're live, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. I may bring a few into the conversation. Also, please let me know where you're watching from. Alexis, welcome to our connection.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Sure. So what were your symptoms, and when did they first appear?
So I started having symptoms around the age of 16, 17, I guess. I'd had a major surgery, a partial hysterectomy actually. And as I was recovering from that, as hard as that was, I started kind of noticing I was getting a little clumsy. Me and my family kind of dialed it back to like, well, it could just be recovering, I don't know. We just went through a lot, so we're trying to dial it back to hopefully nothing major. So I went on back to high school, and I just started noticing I couldn't really walk a straight line anymore. Like, I would go to my classes, people didn't really notice much, but I could notice, like, in myself that I was not okay. This was not what I'm used to, and something didn't feel right. So I guess a lot of the first symptoms were just the walking and losing balance. I would have a couple falls that didn't make sense because usually you don't really fall much if you have balance. So that's what I noticed to begin with, was my walking and my gait was not how it used to be or should be.
Mm-hmm. So for many, it can take upwards of 6 years to get a diagnosis. How long did it take for you to get a diagnosis?
Yes, so we, like I said, kind of started noticing at 16, like the off balance major. If there were small things before, we hadn't noticed much, but I do think maybe, from 14 up, I guess I started slowly having symptoms, I would say. But 16 was the age where I thought something's not right. But we didn't really try to get it diagnosed or anything figured out because we were hoping it was just clumsiness. We didn't want to have to. I was still in high school, about to kind of start college, so we kind of just brushed it off. But as years kept going, I kept noticing it was getting worse. So I started my first year of college when I was 18, and I noticed I would have to stop while walking to class like 3 times to catch my breath, make sure I'm not going to get too tired and trip over my feet. So I was still walking to class on my own then, but it was very a nerve-wracking feeling. So I remember I went home when I was 18, yeah, and I told my dad I thought we need to maybe see a doctor because something just, it's not right. It's not getting better, and I don't know what's going on. So we went to my local nurse practitioner, and we just kind of told her all the issues I was having, and she decided to send me to an ears, nose, and throat doctor. So when we went there, he did some tests, and all came out fine. It wasn't in her ear. Like, we were really praying for that. That way, it was an easy fix. But he told me, my dad, he said it's not in her ear, but go to a neurologist. If they don't know, go to somebody else till you do figure it out. So by the time it took us half a year to get to a neurologist. We kind of talked to him about the issues. And then 4 days before my 20th birthday, I received the news that I have Friedreich's ataxia. So it did take about 4 years for a fact till, we decided this is more than what we're thinking, and getting in with doctors took about 2.5 years until we actually got the results of what was going on.
Hmm. So how was it diagnosed?
So they decided I had my sister, she was actually talking to a doctor at the time. He was still in med school, but he had just studied ataxia, weirdly. So we mentioned to the neurologist, which they're very smart, of course, they would have figured it out, I have no doubt. But I thought, let's just go ahead and tell the neurologist what maybe we heard that it could be. So the neurologist, he agreed, like, let's do some tests. I know a little bit about ataxia. So after we did, different testing, nose, finger to nose, check my reflexes, he said, let's send out for blood work. So they came to my house and took blood. And then it took still about 2 weeks until it came back positive for FA.
Yeah. It's interesting how the new doctors are always the ones that catch these things.
Yeah, I've had a lot better luck with younger doctors, I have to be honest.
Yeah, because they're just went through it, and so it's
Yeah,
older doctors don't keep up with the. I guess they don't have to go back
yeah,
and retrain. So it's
yeah. And there's just seems like a lot more rare stuff out there. So it's, the younger ones are willing to test and think back to odd things they learned that, like, hey, it actually could be that, instead of something very simple like we all want it to be. But sadly, sometimes that's just not the diagnosis.
yeah. So I wanted to stop to share an excerpt from I wanted to share one of my excerpts from one of the fan mails that I have here. And so this is from Katrina. She says, hearing Jenny's raw honesty about receiving two rare diagnoses from Avery and Paxton on the same day stuck with me. Your conversation beautifully captured not just the clinical realities, but the day-to-day resilience families carve out, especially as Jenny described the mix of navigating school supports, behavioral challenges, and emotional fortitude it takes to advocate for kids who rarely fit into neat categories. Alexis, what went through your mind when you heard Friedreich's ataxia for the first time?
Well, it's funny that we're kind of talking about older doctors. The one that did the diagnosis, he was like really close to retiring. So he kind of gave me my diagnosis, and he had printed off, I mean, it was a book of paperwork. He was like, here's what I found on Google. You know, I've tried to read up on it, but there's no cure. There's nothing right now. And I remember my first question. Of course, I was 16, you know, and I thought, well, sorry, no, I was almost 20 when I was diagnosed, but it had been running through my head since having issues. Will this lead to me being in a wheelchair one day? And all he could say is, possibly, I don't know, just read the paperwork. So a lot of things were going through my head, you know, like, what am I going to do? That was not helpful. I don't know what I have. I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, I've always been such a big dreamer, so at the time I thought, I mean, there goes everything I hoped for in life, you know. One diagnosis changed everything.
Mm-hmm. So, how did your symptoms change over time?
Well, when I first got diagnosed, I was still walking into the doctor's office on my own. I think I did use my dad's arm like for the longer walk into the office, but then other than that, I was just not having great balance. I might have used the ball a little bit. But since being diagnosed about 3 years ago, I got, to give a time frame, I'm 26 now, so around 22, 23, I decided I needed to use a walker full time. So now I started with the 3-wheel walker. That did good for a while for me. I still occasionally use it for like in-house work, but I just switched to a 4-wheel walker because it's just a lot more stable. Not having balance is a very scary feeling because you just feel like you're always going to maybe fall over. So I switched to the 4-wheel walker, and then anytime we go on long walks or like go on vacation, it flips to kind of a wheelchair. So I'll get pushing it because I've gotten pretty fatigued now. Like, I get tired a lot when I walk. My coordination also has declined, as in I'll have to have both hands on the coffee mug so I don't splash coffee everywhere. So I would just say my balance and coordination have definitely, they're the two that have gotten worse.
So, how did you first learn about the new treatment options for? How did it first? Oh, yeah. How did you first learn about the new treatment options for FA?
So, I honestly, I didn't believe it, but my fiance, he called me back in 23, I believe it's when it became official. He called me and he was like, guess what? You know, the FDA passed Sky Clearance, you know, you can get it now. However, I know more than that crazy. But anyways, I was like, there's no way, I didn't believe it. So he sent me the article about it, and I read it for myself, and I was like in shock, I guess. But the first thing I did was called my neurologist's office, and I was like, I need to figure out how to get on this treatment right away.
Mm-hmm. So how does the new how does the new therapy Skyclarys work?
So it has been, I don't know, a miracle for me. I take it three pills one time a day. And what it's done is honestly going to physical therapy. We've been able to document like how I was before Sky Clary's and like what's come since being on it. And we've kind of just noticed I've had like a standstill. Like the fatigue has continued to get worse. I do get tired faster than what I did, but since getting on Sky Clarities, we just have not noticed like progression, at all. So I'm using the walker. Some people might have switched to wheelchair by now, but with Sky Clarities, I believe it really has kept me, going like physically and mentally. So it's been a life changer for sure.
Mm-hmm. So what changes have you noticed in starting Skyclarys?
There's not like I talked to a lot of people on social media who want to know about Sky Clarities, and I always try to tell mom like there's not much of a cure. I haven't noticed over like a lot of changes that have gotten better. But I just before Sky Clarities I could see the progression. Like I just knew I was going downhill. This disease was taking my mobility, my coordination. And then since I've been on Sky Clarities, I haven't noticed big changes at all. So in the last 3 years almost, it's just kept me still walking and being able to do things that I really think had Sky Clarities not been approved, I don't know if I'd be able to do that stuff still.
Mm-hmm. So what does it mean for the FA community to finally have an FDA approved treatment?
Well, from what I've seen, getting that treatment, it's really pushed, people to continue to work on more. The end goal, of course, it's a cure one day, hopefully. So I think Sky Clarities has opened up a lot of doors and made it to where people are like, hey, this is possible. Maybe we could find a cure, if we all just work together, advocate, each individual person, anything. It's so important to just get people to know what FA is, the fact that we have found a treatment, and there could definitely be more in the near future.
Mm-hmm. So another excerpt from a fan email. This one is from Don. Don writes, hearing you and Dr. Stephen Quay talk about repurposing cancer therapies for Duchenne muscular dystrophy in March 19th, in your March 19th episode really hit home. The way you explored how innovation for one rare disease can spark hope for another absolutely sums up why Rare Connection is so engaging. I especially appreciate the discussion on therapeutic crossovers and the tough road from research to actual treatment for families waiting in the wings. I'm happy to say that Dr. Quay will be back next week to talk about how Z-endoxifen works for McCune-Albright syndrome. So, Alexis, what does living with Friedreich's ataxia look like on a day-to-day basis?
I always tell people like that's such an easy question, but at the same time, it's so loaded. I'm like, you wake up, and I still remember days when I would wake up, go to the bathroom, start my day, and you didn't have to think, like, how am I going to get there? So now I wake up and I kind of dread, first I'm like, you got to get it done. You're going to be tired. You're already tired and don't feel motivated, but just get up, start your day. So I get my day started like anyone else, and I don't know, it's just a lot slower pace than what it used to be, but I cook at home, I clean at home, I still do everything anyone without FA does. It's slower for me, and it's definitely a different process than what it used to be, because at all times I have to be holding on to something, which I have grown to get used to, but it's still just, you think back to, well, I remember, when life wasn't so hard, but I don't know, I keep pushing forward, because I know the day it's just, I take them one step at a time.
Mm-hmm. So what role does patient advocacy play in accelerated research?
So, advocating is just really important, because people now, we have all kinds of social media, TikTok, so people are able to create videos showing like different symptoms they have, what issues they're having. So I think that advocating is just so important, because you never know who's out there watching and can see and be like, hey, here's what they have, like, what are the similar symptoms to other diseases even that can like help advance different medications or treatments or trials, and people with FA or other rare diseases are able to learn about the different trials out there that they could be a part of to help find different treatments.
So what challenges do people with FA face that others might not realize?
Well, a lot of things I tell my siblings is every day, a lot of things like I face. And I know with FA, it's really different for everyone, because you can be diagnosed at different ages. But just even the walking around from point A to B, having to make sure you have that mobility device. Like for me, it's been really different, because like I said, I kind of recall life where I didn't have to have it. But now when I'm going to stand up, I'm like, by now I've learned, but I know in early years it was, wait, I can't get on my own. So just even going to the kitchen to grab a drink, I have to stand up, get my balance as well as I can, get my device, walk slowly to my fridge, hold on to the counter while I open the fridge holding on, get my drink, carefully lay down my device, and then slowly walk back to the chair, and then just kind of flop in the chair. And I know that seems so simple, but people who don't have to worry about a mobility device and know what it feels like to have FA just can't understand how something that simple even feels like we walked a mile by the time we sit back down.
So what role do mobility aids play in maintaining independence?
So without mobility aids, we would just be stuck sitting there hoping and praying somebody would carry us somewhere, help us walk somewhere if you're still at that level. So mobility devices are so important, because I'm able to even use my walker to get my drink while, no one's home. I'm still able to put my device in my car and drive to the store if I need. So without our mobility devices, we would just be stuck. Like, I mean, they're just so important, like, to have to do anything. So it's so important to have mobility devices. I don't know what I would do. Luckily, I have a great support system, but people just aren't available, 24/7 to carry me around. So having my mobility devices made it to where I'm able to be independent.
Yeah. I work as a caregiver also, so if you're carrying someone around, that can be backbreaking.
Yeah, I can only imagine, what a caregiver, if you can even get a caregiver, because I know insurances can be odd, but even on the caregiver, without somebody having that mobility device too, it's hard, so hard.
Yeah. Most of the people I work with are on Medicare or Medicaid.
Yeah.
What inspired you to start Rise Up?
Sorry. So with Rise Up, me and my dad, we both kind of like co-founded Rise Up. I knew I wanted to make a difference for like people with FA. I didn't know how. So once I got into watching like TikTok videos a lot, I got involved in like Facebook communities with FA. And what I learned was without good insurance or the support system like I have, some people are stuck, kind of reverting back to your question, what would they do without mobility aids? And some people really do have to live a life like that. And I've read so many where people weren't even able to like go outside and see the sun that day, and that really broke my heart, because that's one thing I do that just makes my day better, is getting to go outside, feel the fresh air. So me and my dad talked about it, and we decided, mobility aids are hands down the most important thing for people with mobility issues. And the fact some people can't get financed for them or can't afford to get them, we decided we would like to create a foundation that could hopefully provide that financial support they need, or get them just a walker or wheelchair, whatever they're needing.
So why are mobility devices often difficult to access?
So from what I have seen, this is even personal, like happened to me recently, was I had insurance, and my physical therapist thought it'd be a good idea to like go ahead and give me a wheelchair in case I did have a fall and needed it, or if I wanted it for like vacation, not full time yet, because I think it's so important to keep up the mobility I have. But I went along with her, and I said, okay, let's go ahead and do it. Well, because my insurance fell off like right before anything got finalized, the whole order got canceled just like that. So it's really hard. Like, if you do have good insurance, you're probably set pretty good, as long as it covers the whole amount for the wheelchair. But I mean, right now it's hard to even find jobs with that good insurance, and after you're 26, you fall for your parents in my case, so that kind of makes it hard.
Yeah. Some states actually have an extension on that too. You might want to check into.
Yeah, I did sort of check. Tennessee does not.
Yeah, I know Texas has one, so it's
yeah, that'd be great. If some states do, that's definitely awesome. I think all states should. I'm a strong believer that people don't wake up and ask for what any of us have, so I don't know why states and the government don't see that.
So what kind of impact can something as simple as a walker or wheelchair have on someone's life?
Well, I think the impact it has is just we're able to like get out there and see the world. We might get to actually go on trips and, like I said, just do really small, basic things that people are able to do every day if they can walk to the fridge and walk back. But for us, we're just kind of stuck there without our device. So it makes it where we can be independent, like anyone else.
Mm-hmm. So another excerpt from a fan email. Rob writes, listening to your conversation with Taylor Hoffman, I was truly moved by her determination to fight for survival after her sudden postpartum crisis. When Taylor described the ICU moment where she described the fight for her life, where she decided to fight for her life, it was clear how deeply the right medical interventions and timely decisions can mean the difference between hope and heartbreak for patients and their families. Her journey makes me think of other vulnerable beginnings inside the NICU, where their survival often hinges on details most outside the field rarely consider. What are your long-term goals for the foundation?
So, long-term goals for our foundation would be where we're able to just throw these big events, like a lot of foundations do, just get people together, learning about FA, advocating, sorry, and to be able to just provide like income that anyone needs to get those devices.
Mm-hmm. So how has social media helped you connect? How has social media helped you connect with the FA community?
Social media has given me the opportunity to like talk to so many people around the world. They message me now about a big one is these sky clearies, how it's affecting me, what I recommend sky clearies. I've gotten to like become a part of just the whole FA community. From the beginning, I really thought, you hear it's a rare disease, so I assumed I would be totally alone. But social media has made it to where I have been able to just learn so many people and become part of a community I just had no clue was out there.
What role does storytelling play in raising awareness for rare diseases?
So I believe storytelling can just really has the opportunity to share with people like what you do go through. Some people don't realize they just look at it like, well, that's sad, I feel bad for her, and then they move on with it, which I understand everyone has their own life, but when you're able to storytell and connect with people even outside of like the rare disease community, they learn what different people actually go through. Like as simple as trying to bake a cake. You have people on social media who show how hard they can be, what they have to do to make it happen. But in the end, we still like to do the same things other people can do that don't have rare diseases. So, storytelling is just so important to connect with others who have no clue what it's even like to live with mobility issues.
Yeah. So, for watching, for people watching right now who may be experiencing unexplained symptoms, what would you want them to pay attention to or advocate for?
To pay attention to with like if they're getting symptoms, I think it's important. Definitely advocating anyways. If somebody doesn't really know what's going on with them, just getting out there and posting a video. I've seen where people have been, they've been diagnosed with like FA through online, and it's just so important to share. So sorry, I think I'm getting a little cold, but anyways, if you post small symptoms you're having, people out there can see what you're going through and really help you even get that diagnosis you're needing when you have no clue what's even going on with your body. So I think it's so important that any detail you notice that you feel is not right, or, such as gait issues or coordination, if you just even get out there and advocate what you have going on. There is a whole world of different communities out there that are just so happy to help get you on the right track.
Mm-hmm. So for patients who need to travel long distances for specialists, what are some of the challenges people don't always think about?
So traveling long distance, I recently in December actually did that to see Dr. Lynch, a specialist in Philadelphia. And there's a lot to consider. The long drive for one. We chose to drive, so you have to think about how is the driving going to affect you and your body. Flying on a plane, I've done that several times, and it's an option too, but a lot of people don't realize, I guess, what comes in with that. Having to get out of a chair, get your seat, finally get on the plane, be the last one out, sometimes the first, all eyes on you. So that's just a little, is thinking about the actual traveling, but then you think financially, a lot of people, they're just not able to travel to get the help they need, and that's a lot to think about too.
Mm-hmm. So when you look at the full picture, mobility, access to care, and even getting to the right specialist, what do you think patients with rare diseases need the most that they're not getting right now?
So I guess to me, I wish with that question that more people, went to. I even thought about how great it'd be if I could even go speak to like a college class, people who are becoming PTs or neurologists, and just speak to them about what FA is, so that hopefully then people could have like local specialists near them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most people are familiar with ataxia, but when you're thinking Friedreich's ataxia, that's a totally different ballgame. And so it's because even I was diagnosed with ataxia after a stroke, but it because it's part of my seizures, but it comes and goes, so it's not the same. So ataxia is a general term for it, whereas Friedreich's ataxia is an actual condition. So there is a difference.
Yeah.
So how can you find out more about your work? How can we find out more about people find out more about your work with Rise Up?
So we do have a website posted up and going. It's riseupfa.com. I also have a TikTok and a Facebook, Rise Up FA. And on there they can see videos, see what we have to offer, and at any time get in touch with me.
So, Alexa, thank you so much for sharing your story and for the work you're doing to support others living with Friedreich's ataxia.
Yes.
Today's conversation really comes back into one important question. What does it take to maintain independence when your body is changing? What we heard today is that it's not just one thing. It's access to care. It's access to the right care. Sometimes far from home. Oh, it's the right mobility equipment. It's support from the community, and it's people like Alexis who are turning their own experience into something that helps others through organizations like Rise Up. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Rare Connection, and also check out my YouTube channel, Rare Chef. There is an underscore in between Rare and Chef. If you're watching live or on replay, feel free to leave a comment below. If you're listening on the audio, you can use the send me a text link in the show notes. I always love to hear from you. You can also follow Rare Connection on Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And as always, if you or someone you know is struggling, or help is available. In the United States, you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Watch for our next episode, where I will be talking with Dr. Stephen Quayback. Where we'll be welcoming Dr. Stephen Quayback to talk about how a Z-endoxifen helps McEwen-Albright syndrome. The episode will not be live, but it is being filmed on April 27th and will be available within the next few days on both audio and video. Thank you for being part of this community and being here for my 75th episode. I'll see you next time on Rare Connection.